Hello and welcome to another maintenance video from a very hot engine bay. I've been charging the batteries on the generator for the last few hours, and it's very hot down here, and we're in the tropics as well, so you have to excuse the sheen on the forehead. This week's maintenance blog is about the furlers, the electric furlers on the main mast. Now there are two furlers, one in-mast furler and one for the outhaul furler, which are essentially the same type of motor. They're a Leroy Somer's MVA furler with a gearbox attached. As we were about to cross the Atlantic, I wanted to make sure that these two furlers were properly serviced, but as I had two completely different experiences with the two motors, I've decided to split this blog into two. So the first one, this one, will be the in-mast furler, and the second one will be the outhaul furler. So the in-mast furler is positioned at the base of the mast, and it is a 24-volt motor attached to a gearbox which turns a foil which is integral to the mast, and what that does is it turns the foil which basically wraps the sail around it on the inside of the mast. So this system is more commonly known as in-mast furling. The unfortunate thing about doing this job for the first time is you have to cut the power cable on the inside of the protective sheath. Obviously this introduces a brake which has to be waterproofed with some heat shrink when the job is finished. So the first job was to remove it from the mast and disconnect it from the manual furler. The servicing of the manual furler is dealt with in a separate video. So the electric furler it's kind of nipped onto the side of the mast here, and this engages with a pin which engages the manual furler, which then goes up and furls the foil in here. So what I need to do is drop that out, take it out, hopefully try and press that pin out somehow. Ta-da! And so these are held on with kind of bushings here. They go into the housing, which is Delrin or Delrun, I can't remember the name of the plastic, but it's very brittle. As you can see, it started to crack around there. I think that's partly because the screw holes are drilled so close to the edge. I'm notorious for losing screws and bolts and washers. So it's easy just to keep them in the place that they came out of. So once I'd removed it, it was time to take it into the cockpit and take it apart. So that's the bolt and the washer at the base of the pin. And here I'm just marking the orientation of the Delrin rings, so I know which way to put them back on once I've finished. As you can see, the pin is basically a metal rod with a connector which connects onto the manual furler, which in turn turns the foil inside the mast. Once the Delrin rings were removed, it was time to move on to the end caps. Now these end caps have been in place for 20 years and are very thin and very brittle as well. So after marking it, I removed it with a blunt chisel. Well, it's very milky in there. Whatever oil was in there has certainly had some leakage. And then the top cap comes off with the contents of the gearbox. So that's very, very milky. So now I've just got to press that out somehow. I've given it a clean up, and actually it's not too bad at all. In fact, it feels fine. There's no rattling there, but obviously there's water getting in through the seals at the top because the oil was really milky. which means I've got to replace that seal, but to get that seal out I've got to push the whole pin out, so it means the whole thing's got to be taken apart. It's just to change that one seal. It's good to know that the cogs look okay, a little bit worn but not too bad at all, and the bearings, they're just standard bearings so I can get them from anywhere, and the seals as well. I need to go and get that pressed out now. There's a hydraulic press just down the road, so I'll see what he can do with that. So the pin for the mainsail furler came out relatively easy on a hydraulic press. It seems like there's an aluminium shaft in a stainless steel housing. I think that's what it is, which might explain why it's so sort of stuck in there. But now it all needs to clean up. I've got to clean up the inside of the main bearing shaft. The bearings themselves are actually fine, so I'm not even going to bother taking that apart. But I'm going to give this a clean up, and the key there fits in there. So basically give it all a clean up, and then maybe Duralac the inside of that so it doesn't stick so badly next time. I've got a little bit of diesel in the bottom there, some rags, and I'm just going to give everything a clean down, thin coat of grease on it, and see where we're at. And then I've got to wait for the spare parts to come from the UK, because I've ordered a load of lip seals and bearings, probably more than I need actually, but it's always good to have a few spares on board. So these are the Delrin mounts that actually mount the motor that way, and so the motor sort of gets sandwiched between those, and then they get fastened to the mast by a couple of bolts. But just looking at them, you can see that there's tiny cracks down here because the screw holes are so close to the edge. It just seems like such a bad design. I'm not sure whether this has been sort of custom made by a previous owner or whether this is the Amel original, but it just seems to me that there must be a much better way of doing that. Amel sell for about €65, but you can get a 500mm length of Delrin rod for about €60. The other thing I want to do is stick a grease nipple in here so we can grease the worm gear, which is inside. I don't know if you can see that there. So I want to keep that nicely greased. So I'm just not quite sure what's behind there, so I'm just going to take the end cap off here, so I can get a better idea of what's going on. So there's the gear there, so I want to put it just above it so it falls down onto it and then works in. So I've got some M6 grease nipples here and some nylon cheesehead screws. Don't know why they call them cheesehead. One in there and one in there. I'll put some grease on there just to catch any iron filings. Just above the worm gear there. It's thicker than I thought that. Now we've got the pilot hole in. I'll drill the hole for the M6. I'm just trying to get as many shards of metal out there as I can. It's only small, but it's stuck to the grease, which is handy because it just sticks to the screwdriver. So then it was just a matter of putting it all back together. I just had a second thought. To try and stop the water getting in, I'm just going to put some O-rings around there. I can't even remember whether they were on the original ones. The other thing I've done is put a layer of Duralac on there. I mean, I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but this is aluminium and the shaft is stainless, so it makes sense having some sort of barrier between the two. The other problem with doing maintenance on board is you have to deal with curious little fingers. So that's as far as it'll go. There's a bit of a gap there where moisture can get in. So I'm wondering whether in the original design there was something there to stop it getting in, like a sleeve. Right, I've got the seals back in place. I had to put a few screws in there to hold it in, because every time I'd knock the pin in, the caps would fly off. It's almost for my beautiful paint job. I've got grease all over it now. So now what I've got to do is resplice these wires and put it back in place. I've orientated it with a label, thinking the label would be the right way around, but actually when I've looked at it now, it should be that way, because the cable comes out the bottom of the motor and the label's on upside down, which means I've got the pin in the wrong way around. So I'm going to have to take that back out and then stick it on the other side. Take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Of course, that does mean now that I've got the grease nipple in at the bottom rather than the top.
Oh.
I think I'll check the brushes while I'm here as well. I think we've got plenty of life left in them. Doing that. M70 for future reference. So we've got like a gap around here, which is just begging for salt water to kind of collect in, so sort of a silicone washer in there. Start of a bit of corrosion there as well, just on the housing, just where the cable runs in. So I'm just going to stick a bit of anti-corrosion compound on that. So I'm going to fill it up with grease now from my bottom grease nipple. The other thing I ordered was a decent grease gun. So what I'll do from now on is just periodically just top that up. But if that grease does come out, there should be some telltale signs from down below here. At least I know I can top it up now. Although it should be a lot easier to check now that I can take that pin out. So finally I was ready to put it back on the mast and crimp the power cable. It's always a tense time doing the first test after you've done a service like this. Yep, go for it.
Here we go. Did it work?
No, not a thing.
The wrong one, I'm doing the outhaul.
Yeah, that's definitely not going to work.
Is it the red one?
Mainsail furler.
Here we go again.
Okay, can you run it for about 10 seconds?
Okay.
Okay, in the opposite way. So now everything was working as it should. I needed to rejoin that cable and make it as watertight as possible with some heat shrink. So in the middle of trying to get the shrink wrap on, I managed to pull one of the terminals off, which goes to show that it wasn't on that well anyway. So I'm going to have to redo them now. I thought I'd also take the opportunity to tin the ends with some solder as well. So that was it, fairly straightforward, no nasty surprises, unlike the outhaul furler, which I'll be dealing with in the next video. So thanks for watching, and thanks in particular to our patrons. This is a niche channel and doesn't create a lot of YouTube ad revenue, so any contributions via PayPal or Patreon are greatly received. And now you can also buy one of our crew shirts by following the links to our merch store. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video.